Bardella, Democratic strategist, LA Times and USA Today contributor, and the former spokesperson for the House Oversight Committee Republicans. Kurt, how much stock do you put into the notion of former Trump sycophants like Mike Pompeo and Bill Barr purportedly turning on Donald Trump?
Absolutely none, Katie. I remember in the aftermath of January 6th, Republicans were talking about it's time to step away from Trump. They had the perfect on-ramp to divorce themselves from Trumpism. And yet, after a couple weeks went by and a couple news cycles went by, they were right back there on the Trump train. Every single person who's speaking out right now, ask them the question, if Donald Trump ends up being the Republican nominee, will you still vote for him? Will you still campaign for him? Will you still try to raise money for him? Of course they all will. They'll fall right back in line. So much of this reminds me of what we saw in the 2016 primary, where there was all kinds of Republicans, Jeb Bush, Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, Scott Walker, saying basically the same things about Donald Trump that we're seeing some of these people say right now. And at the end of the day, they all got in line behind Donald Trump and led us down this national nightmare.
Well, to your point, Bill Barr has said, I will support Donald Trump if he is the nominee, as did Mike. Now upping his hits on Trump, as we just heard, calling himself a never again Trumper. But he didn't do it when he was in Congress and had real power to effect change. Kurt, are they all just paper tigers, the lot of them?
Yeah, I've not seen any evidence that there's real substance behind their words. They're all posturing right now because maybe this is the moment that there is an appetite within the Republican Party to move away from Donald Trump. But at the end of the day, this is a guy who's still, poll after poll, he's number one. And even though DeSantis has been certainly gaining ground and there's a bit of a, tremor after the midterm disappointments and underperformance of the Republicans, there's still no denying that in the Republican primary electorate, Trump is still king. You look at the candidates that got elected to run in the general election, the ones that Trump backed, those people, they're not listening to the quote-unquote establishment that they've spent so long attacking. They're not listening to what the quote-unquote conventional wisdom is and what the Beltway Republican mentality might be. Those are all things that Trump has spent the last 6 years attacking and tearing down. So I don't think that the people who voted for some of these lunatics in Pennsylvania, Arizona, Georgia, they're going to really care what Paul Ryan thinks, at a confab of establishment Republicans.
Kurt, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk to you about the following. The incoming House majority, their intent solely on investigating Hunter Biden. But new polling is showing only 28% of voters think investigating Hunter Biden should be a top priority. Only 28%. We already know, Kurt, that the GOP doesn't have an identifiable platform or policy to actually affect real change to benefit Americans. Is there anything that exists on the GOP platform other than the governing message of revenge?
No, it's very clear that the only thing that they feel like they're going to be able to do with such a narrow majority in the House is to just do investigations, to issue subpoenas, to hold kangaroo court hearings, and try to run roughshod over the Biden administration through the use of investigative force. It's interesting because they've spent the last few years, particularly with the January 6th committee, saying that Congress shouldn't have this investigative power, saying that subpoenas should not be complied with. Heck, they've argued in court against the enforcement of checks and balances. But this is why it's so vital, Katie, that Democrats put their best foot forward in putting members on the dais in the ranking Democrat spots that can go head-to-head with Jim Jordan, James Comer. These things pull terribly right now. Republicans have no traction. They look desperate. But I'll tell you, if we don't have the people to match up with them, this will turn around so quickly. Democrats do not want to be in that position.
I'm glad you brought up that issue, Kurt, of the subpoenas, because I'm curious to see what ends up happening when there's non-compliance with a subpoena by a Democrat, when the Republicans pretended like subpoenas had no teeth, didn't exist, especially congressional subpoenas. Kurt Bardella, my friend, always so good to see you. Thank you for being here this evening. I appreciate you.